Okay, forgot to record, but we are talking about server-side routes versus client-side routes. So server-side routes are the routes that we define in our server. It is what our browser is going to automatically send whatever request that goes to our server domain. It'll send it to the server. So I do /categories by itself. So I wasn't routing from within the React application. It went to the server here, and it's looking at all the routes that we have defined, but it's not finding anything that's called /categories. So also another reason why we added the API here is because we wanted to be able to differentiate if our client-side routes, our front-side routes, are actually going to the backend or not. So we wanted to get like a clearer error, basically. So any request that goes in here is going to automatically go to our server. Our base is going to our server, but because we have the view that serves up the static files, we see our React application here. So within our React application, to be able to properly route to different pages and go back and forth between components, we have to use the components that the React router gives us. So this is in the case that we're using browser router. So here we're using browser router that just has like the slashes. It doesn't have any of the hashes that we've seen in hash router. So because the routes end up being the same, anything with a slash will end up going to the server. Anything that has a hash, oops, everything after this hash will stop at the UI, and it's not going to be sent to our server. So if we were using hash router here, and I think I might have to change my routes. Yeah, so.
Just as a curiosity question, for the purposes of CSS formatting,
yeah,
browser router requires the specific tools from React Router DOM to be used. And that link on line 32 has to be tucked into the router on line 31. Could you then take that entire router block and put that in its own div so you could CSS the div?
You could. Yeah.
Okay.
You should be able to. So let's try.
Or maybe like a nav bar or something, right? So that way it's all in a nav bar. And if you're going to format it using whatever formatting tools.
I think that was my, okay. Wanted nav bar here. So I don't think you can put a nav bar around the router. I mean, you probably can.
Go link as div, like link as equals to div to change the link to a div.
Here?
Is that what you're talking about? Because I think you can do that.
What I'm saying is, so like you've got all the routes and paths and we want to build a nav bar. I just don't know how to get all of those route elements to show up in like a nav bar format using Bootstrap or whatever else. So you could manually do it.
Yeah. So you can put them, you can put the entire nav bar inside the router. That's the solution. So you would put it inside the router, outside of the routes. And then if I have my link
and
here,
then in your nav bar, you could put your link in there, right?
Yeah. And then here I can have my router link home. And this one can stay. Okay. So if I refresh,
I need to change it back to browser router up top.
yeah, thank you. Broken pipe. Something broke. I think it was just, oh, okay. I moved around some of my divs. So I think this one ended up without another, okay. So here, yeah, this is where indenting is really helpful. Be able to actually see what's in what. So let's check now. So we have router link home, router link categories. So we go to the categories page, router link posts.
So you can't
Okay,
put it
so
all in
all
the
of
nav
that.
bar, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, you can add them in a nav bar and you can style the nav bar however you want.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So basically the regular links are just taking us to, it's just making a GET request pretty much. And it's getting confused and accidentally going to our server. That is why we have to either use the link component that is provided with our React router, or we would have to use like a hash router and deal with the hashes and make sure that none of our requests go to the backend.
So realistically, we also don't need routes and route on line 9 at all. We just need router and link.
Routes and route.
Because if we're using the router, that's line 25, and then we're using link
Yeah.
on line 31, we're not even using 37 through 42.
We are. So we're using, I mean, no, these are the components. So every time I click, the component changes. So this is the posts page. I know it doesn't look good right now because we don't
Right.
have much of the
What's the
styling.
difference between line 31 and line 39?
31 and 39. So 31 and 39. So 39 is setting up that within this pane of, here, let me remove, oh, I did remove the app.css.
So we still need both lines then, is what you're saying?
Yes, so let me just explain what the first one does. Oh, that's so much uglier. Okay. So everything inside the routes are routes that are attached to components. So whenever a URL has the path that is whatever is defined here, it will render this component in this piece of router.
Okay.
So the nav bar is going to stay the
right.
same. Yeah,
The bar is on top and the other part's below it, so it needs to show
Exactly.
what's got it. Okay.
exactly.
I was just
So
misunderstanding.
no, of course. So these we wouldn't need the top ones, the nav bar links, and we can just have the links, and that would fix it. So we just click on any of these. This would be seamless, and we
Yep.
won't have any. Yeah, we won't have any issues. But
That
now,
makes
if we hit enter here, if we hit enter at the top of the bar, our browser, sorry. Yeah, it automatically goes to the server and it's like, hey, I don't understand. Yeah, there's a lot more to read about like React router or like server-side rendering versus client-side. There's quite a few. I'm gonna send this page of results. I started reading a little bit, but yeah. Okay. Any more questions about routing? Is anything still kind of not making sense with the routes?
When I removed like one of my nav links and added this link, not sure why, but it killed my page. Or maybe do I need to remove nav from around it?
So the links are inside the nav bar. So maybe if you have anything else nested, it might be.
Okay, I'm gonna take a second to figure it out because I want us to be able to get through it.
Do you need any, do you want to debug or will you be able to?
I think I might be able to figure it
You
out.
got it, okay. Sounds good. Okay, so let's actually start getting some API data. So now we're rendering our 3 components based on the navbar links. So I can add, what is it called? So let's say when we go to our categories page, we want to call our get categories. So let's implement that. Categories page, what do we need here? If we want to call an API and then display the information that was in the API on the screen. What are some pieces that we need?
Axios.
Axios, yeah.
And you need a use effect to call API.
Yeah. So axios, useEffect.
So I guess by that, you're gonna have to have a function that makes your API call and then use the use effect to call that.
Sorry, I needed what to call the use effect? I didn't hear that last part.
Just a function that you're going to be
A
calling.
function, yes. So this is coming from React. Do we want useState? Do we think that would be helpful?
Probably.
Probably. Let's do that. Okay, so we have useEffect and useState. So we'll start with useEffect. How do I structure this? What do I send in?
Parentheses, arrow function,
Mhm.
curly brackets. And then we could go ahead and do an axios dot post, or let's go ahead and do a async function too, or put async on it.
Async. So
Yes.
we shouldn't do async on useEffect, but we can put it in a different function and make that function async.
Okay.
How do we feel about that? So let's do function get categories, or maybe get all categories. And we'll put our axios call in there. And then we will probably need to call this. When do we want this to get called? When do we want to get all the categories? What's our useEffect being affected by?
On mount.
On mount, yeah. So what should I put here?
An array, empty array.
Empty array. There we go. Okay, so we're doing axios dot. Which method are we using for this one?
Get.
Get. Let's get. And what is our route? We can actually see our routes here if we wanted. So these are the routes that we defined in our views. Sorry, in our urls.py and that are being handled in our views. So get, let's look at our URLs. We want to get the categories. So probably this URL is the one that we want to use. And then it's going to be handled by categories. So we have to look at that in a sec. So I'm going to go back to my app. No, sorry, my categories page. I'm going to add API/categories. So this is my API call to my server. And what else? Do we need anything else here actually?
Well, you need to make a async function, right? So,
Yeah.
and
Async.
then after that get, I guess you could do an await.
Okay. Would the await go after or before?
So I think it's like it goes after for sure, but I guess unless it depends on what we're gonna do with it.
Okay.
Well, no, it does go before.
It goes before. Okay, so when we're using async gives us the ability to grab the response without having to do a dot then. So what you're thinking of with the after, that's the dot then part. And we don't have to use an async function for that. We can just say axios.get and then dot then will happen after this gets fulfilled. So if we're using our async function, we can say that we want to await our function call. So we want to await axios doing the get. And then we can actually grab whatever data it sends back as a response straight away and put it into a variable. So we can see here, let response equals await axios.get. And for now, I mean, not just for now, we can do a console.log that is helpful to know what we got back. What would we want to do with this response? Actually, let's look at it first and then see what it is. So we go to basic page, open this. I'm gonna remove this console. Okay, so I want to go to, this is categories page. We went to the categories page, the useEffect got called, and we retrieved this object back. So this object has config, it has some headers. So here there's a header name for the xrf stuff. We'll talk about the csrf issues in a sec. And we see that our stuff that we want to actually access is going to be under data. So we can just say response.data is going to be some information that seems interesting to us. And I refreshed over here and I forgot that I needed to go back or do something else. Okay. So we're supposed to log response.data. That is annoying. Okay, so this is our response. Let's check in our views. And it seems like we're sending exactly that. We're sending success equals false. That was just because we were playing around with the values. So this is not really giving us what we want right now. So if we want, we can just create some dummy data, which I have on the side here. But how do we want to handle this function? Tell me about some things. So what impact does line 11 have on how we want to write this function?
Basically, if it's a, I think if it's a post, you're going to be sending the data. So you want to structure it in a way that you can, like, I don't know, map through it on your, on the client side and be able to display what you want from it.
So are we starting with the get or the post? Let's
I
start
guess
with
now
the
I'm
get.
confused on like. So. Never mind. Go ahead.
Was someone else going to say something?
Can you do if request.method equals get?
Yeah, so request is going to hold a method attribute. And this method attribute will equal to one of these, pretty much, like one of the get, post, put, delete in all caps. So we can check to see if it's get. Then we will do something. What do we want to do here in this case?
Return JSON response list of categories.
Yeah. So JSON response. We can send back list of categories and see what it sends back. So that's saved. I'm gonna click on this again. And we get a big error. Let's see. Seems like it's an error in the promise. Request failed. Status code 500. Does anyone remember what 500 is?
Should be page not found.
That's usually, I think, 404.
This is a
Um,
compliance.
Return nothing.
say it again.
The server error.
So yeah, internal server error. So when we get a 500, we want to go to our Django terminal to see what went wrong. So here it's saying in order to allow non-dictionary objects to be serialized, set the safe parameter to false. So that means it's expecting to send a dictionary, but we're just sending in a list. So we might want to nest this and give it a key. So what do you think a good name for this would be?
Data.
Data. Okay. So when we accessed the request on the front end, it has response.data.
Let's call it categories then.
Categories. Let's do that. Whatever you think would be easier to use. Like if you were using this API, would you look at it and like, why is there two datas? Why is it data.data? Or maybe like, I don't know. That's not a horrible example. I've seen that before. But yeah, I feel like the more you guys are going to play with APIs, you're going to find some nifty APIs that are not friendly. Okay, so we can send the categories. We can also send maybe like a status code or something. I believe, I'm pretty sure the server or the response automatically contains one, but you can set a status. So there's status text, status here. But I guess if you're getting back data, you mean it means that it's successful. So let's see. We're going to refresh. We're not going to refresh. We're going to click on the button again. Okay, I didn't clear my console, so I'm going to do that again. Okay. So awesome. I'm getting back categories, and that's an array. So where should we go next from here? So now we know that we're sending over the list of categories. Which page do we
Go
edit
to our
next?
component page,
Which one?
the categories page component.
Yeah. So we're just printing out the data. What should we do with it here?
I think Zach mentioned it earlier. You could map through it.
Okay. And what would we do with the mapping?
Return it to the page. Like the category names.
Okay. Where would I return it to? So right now we're inside of the categories page here. So in this component, we have the categories page header, which is over here, and then we're not really displaying anything. So maybe we want to display something, and it should probably be the data that we're retrieving. So how can we get the data from here to here?
Can you
useState?
Say it again. I heard a few people.
useState?
useState, yes. I think that would work. Any objections? Sorry. Okay. useState. We'll probably call it categories because that's what we're naming it. So constant categories comma set categories useState. What should we give it as its initial state? Do you guys think?
empty array?
Empty array. We could do it in multiple ways. We can have it as null in the beginning if we wanted to, or we can have it as an empty array. It just depends how we want to, like what we want to do with this, like what checks we want to do. So yeah, okay. So we're doing that. We probably want to grab this data. What do I use to save the data into the state?
The set categories function.
Set categories. What am I sending in?
Response.data.categories.
Categories. Okay. So now that we're setting the categories, it's being set only once in the beginning. Now we should probably display it. So how, you mentioned this earlier. How should we display this?
Start mapping.
Woohoo! Let's start mapping. So categories dot map. That's not a dot. Okay, and our first one we can just call it category singular, and this is going to be an arrow function. What do we put in here?
A return statement. Open the parentheses.
Oh, yes.
Make a new line. And well, it depends on how much stuff we're going to put in there, but just make whatever element you want, whatever HTML element you want.
One in the H4.
And then inside of that, you're going to put category.
Category. Okay, let's see what this does. Categories page. Okay. Nothing seemed like it gave us any errors.
I don't think you need the return statement.
The return?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so it's making the call. We know that.
I think you're going to have to change those curly brackets to parentheses, not those, the yellow ones.
The yellow ones. Okay, so that one, no errors here. Refresh. Back to this. Something happened. I think there was a breakpoint. I just want to refresh. So I do think we needed those curly braces here.
I posted what works for me in the chat.
Let me see where the chat is. Category maps. Yeah, category.title. I do believe that I nested. I think because I was in the curly braces already, I didn't need to do the, I think you need to do the curly braces here, but we'll see. I'll save. Go back to homepage. Okay, so we're getting category.title, which is what we defined here. I'm going to change this to an H3. What do I have to change?
You have to put curly braces around the category dot title. I think because you're inside an HTML thing. So
Yeah.
now it's XML.
Yeah, it's because you're trying to access this variable not as a string, not as just the name category dot title, but you want to access actually what's inside of it. So if we do this, nothing happened. Maybe I needed to just refresh. There we go. Now we see our categories. Awesome. Woohoo. All right. What's next? Trying to get through this in 30 minutes, maybe, and then we can, I don't want to keep you guys too long. Any questions? Anything you want to see done with this stuff?
While we're paused, could we take one more look at the routes, how we did categories? Did we end up switching to hash routing, or are we still using browser routing?
Browser route. Yeah, we're still at browser router.
I still got it there. Mine's not routing correctly for some reason. I always get a 404 when I go to the category page.
Did you use the link, or you're still on navlink?
Oh, I still think I might be on navlink.
That might be, yeah, that might be it.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions or? Okay, it's getting kind of dark in here. Okay, so let's try our hand at post. So we know here our categories request can take a post request. So let's build that up. What should I put here? Should I do an if? Should I do an else if? Should I do an else?
Let's do it else.
Else if? I don't know if anyone said anything else I couldn't hear. That's that method. Yeah, so what's the benefits of not having else if versus if, like another if statement here?
If you do else if, it makes it impossible for both of them to trigger.
Yeah. I know for here you're returning, so this should never get called if you're inside the if statement, but it is better if you only want one of them to trigger at a time, just to get into the habit of doing like if else if. Yeah. And Django is already kind of blocking other things from happening, but I would still not have this as a regular else. Maybe that's just a me thing, but okay. So what should we, so with the post, should we start here? Should we start in the on the page?
Start on a page.
Let's start on the page. Okay. So I'm probably gonna need a form of some sorts, or at least like an input to grab some information. So category only has title that we need to grab. So let's create something. What type of component should I use here if we want to build some sort of input?
Either a form or an input.
Okay. Let's look at just using input. Okay. So with input, there's a few, I don't know if I need it self-closing, but there's a few attributes that we have. We have type. So type can be either oops, type can be text, email, password. So if you do like an email type, it'll automatically do input validation and check that it has like the @ symbol and a dot something. If it's a password, it'll automatically star it out so you don't have it visible on the screen. For this one, I'm just going to do a text. I'm going to hold on to, so there's the value of this thing. There's also, I forgot what the last part of it was. One sec.
ID.
For this one, you don't, I mean, you can set an ID if you'd like, yeah.
On change.
On change, yeah. So on change, we're gonna need a function here. So I'm just gonna do an inline one and see if we need more space later. So here to start off with. Okay, so typically with inputs, you have a piece of state that is tracking the value at that input. So you would want to do like title input. So here you can use a state, but you can also use a ref, like a reference. That's where useRef can be handy. So just a recap, the difference between useState and useRef is useRef, you can use it for variables that you need to track on the DOM, but you don't need them to trigger any updates. Or you don't want them to trigger a components update when you're adding, like when you're changing the value. So I guess a useRef would be pretty useful here. Let's play around with the useRef since we haven't really seen much of it. I think this is how you make the useRef. Yeah. Yeah, so constant title input was useRef with the initial value. I'm just going to put it as an empty string right now because we don't have an initial value for our variable. Okay, so when we're using, just trying to see if they have certain examples. No, it's fine. Okay, so value in an input refers to what is the value that is displayed in that component. So let me put title input for now. Okay, so I want the title input that I'm holding on to always be displayed as the value of that input. So if I refresh, I'm able to connect. Okay, I made an error in my, oh, so I wasn't returning anything. Actually, I can just, yeah, this is okay. So here I'm seeing object. Oh, so the only thing about useRef is that it has a .current to actually access the value. So if it's too complicated, like if you don't like using it, you don't have to, you can just use state. But I believe if I do this, it changes nothing. .current. Okay, let's go back to using state because this is going to take too long to debug.
I think you have to use a .current .value.
Oh, yes. I think that's correct. Thank you. Okay, Okay, it's saving.
Yeah, if you go back to the home page and refresh and then click it again, it should go.
Oh, it's possible because I was just changing the routes and not refreshing the entire. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now if I type, oh, it is automatically taking in value. So is this doing it on itself? So usually you have to write an on change function, and you take in the event of the typing. And so when this changes, you're going to set whatever event.target.value equal to the title input. So I actually want to see what title input is at this point. So I could just put it here. Title input dot current dot value. Save, refresh. I need a better way to do this. Okay, so when this happens, it's because your build hasn't caught up with you yet. You're just clicking too fast. Okay, so that is happening. Nothing is happening here. Maybe because I don't have it in an element. Okay, waiting for it to save. There we go. Okay, I'm not seeing that. I think because it doesn't cause a re-render, it's not going to show up, so we can only use it internally.
My error says that that the property value doesn't exist on the type string, and to try value of. I'm not sure if that'll change.
Oh,
anything.
so maybe .current would be it for that one. Okay, just saving. I got a big error. Okay, so with these ones, you click on this link here. It says visit this, and it tells you missing argument. So just like, yeah, that one wasn't a great error. It's just something is wrong. Okay, let's use the state. Is it working for you? I think, was it Ben who was saying?
Oh no, it was me.
Oh no, yeah, that, so value of works.
I actually don't know because my program is still messed up. But when I've been typing along, and when I type value of, the 3 dots disappear from up under it. So
no, I don't think that's the cause.
Do you need to change the value inside the input to value of as well?
Here, I don't think value of. Did it work for you, or is it just we're trying stuff?
I'm in the same boat as Kayla. I'm broken, but I'm following along.
Okay, let's see.
So I used useRef before, but I had a button to trigger an action after you put something in there to re-render the page.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's actually not showing anything because there's nothing in there. So we're setting the value here, but we set the value initially to an empty string. So this is going to display an empty string. On change is not actually, like when we're changing, when we're typing, it's not actually being held on to.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can
I
add
broke something bigger.
Oh, could we add like a handle function to it?
Yeah. So here, our onChange function, let's say, is going to set our current value. So title input.current equals, so this is with refs, you don't have to use the set something. You don't have to use that function. So it's usually that target dot value, not validation, value. Okay, let's see what that does. Do we know for sure that it has a value? Because I see here dot current a lot of times, but I don't see dot value anywhere. Maybe we should keep this like that and see what happens.
Console log it.
Oh, yes, that would be great. Actually, if we console log it up here, it'll be empty because it's not getting to the input when we're typing. Oh, I guess we can console log it when it updates.
Yeah, I tried without the dot value and it seems to not want me to allow me to input anything. Or it might have been the onChange, I'm not sure.
Interesting. Let me see. These are very fun errors. This is the categories. Okay, I'm still getting an issue. I'm gonna switch back to using state. This is the point where I would be like, either I need more research or I can just go back to using the thing that I know that works.
The other night, I think it was Jorge, he told me focus on useState and useRef.
Yeah.
or I'm sorry, useState and useEffect.
And useEffect, yeah. I think those are the most used ones. Set title input. And then this should be an empty string. Okay, so now wherever we have the dot current, we can just remove it. So title input. And then we have to, when onChange, we have to set title input to event.target.value, or I named it E here, but it represents the event of clicking or the change. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Let's refresh. Refresh again. And I still get errors. What am I doing wrong? I feel like it's the way I wrote this. Oh, I don't think I need to send in anything. I think it automatically has the context of the error. Maybe. No, never mind. Did anyone get it working?
That you still have?
Which one?
The dot current on 31.
That is very possible. I guess that's on me for being lazy and not wanting to read the errors. Okay, still updating.
You still got an E on the onChange. Is that something that still needs to be there since you took it out of the parentheses?
Yeah, it should be there. I'm just trying to figure out. Void element tag must neither have children's nor children. Maybe it's this. I think input tag is self-closing, and it's very possible that it was that. Sometimes this happens when it starts getting a little slow, just restart it. Okay, now it works. If I type, it keeps track of it in real time. And then if I delete, it also keeps track of it in real time. Okay. Whew, finally, a form. That was simple. I can put a placeholder here if I want, and I can say this is for the title. So just so the user knows what we're supposed to put in here. It's also recommended to put a label around it just to know what's there. Okay, so now we know our title input is actually being tracked. I'm going to add a button. I love buttons. So this one will, what is this route supposed to do again, guys? So this post to categories.
It's supposed to add one, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to create a category, exactly. So where am I? Categories page. Create or add category would work. Add category. And what should our onClick basically do?
Post the data that we just sent to, or just set the state to the backend.
Definitely. I'm gonna make a function that I can call. I think I would like to. Oops. Okay. Async function. Add category. Okay. Always beware when you're copying and pasting code. So you have to change every little thing. Okay, so dot post. And it should be at the same API. So what's one thing different that we have to do with post now?
Send the data.
Yeah, and we can send the data through just putting a comma here and then sending a dictionary of data. And all I need to send in is the title. If this was a form that was grabbing like first name, last name, username, password, you can just put them all in that one object and send it over with the post request. So the title, what is the title going to be here?
Title input.
Title input, yeah. Okay, so sending over title input should be correct. Response.data will send us something back. And then here we're setting the categories. This could be, I think this is a way of I've seen this happen with APIs before, where if you add something or delete something, it sends you back the new updated list. So you don't have to do an updated, I mean, actually, it depends on who created the API. So some APIs would send you back the list, the updated list, and then some would just send you back a status of like, okay, it worked. So we don't know what we want to do with the response data, so we're just going to leave it as a console log. So we're going to need to edit our views. Okay, with our post, what are we sending again?
Our input title.
Input title. So how can we access it? How
I
can
think to JSON.loads.
I just need to import JSON. So JSON.loads.
I think request.body.
Request.body. Let's try to print what this outputs. Okay, so we're going to make the request and then it should show up. I think am I getting an error or is this an old one? Okay, the button, I did not set the onClick yet. So the onClick is going to be this add category with parentheses or no parentheses.
No parentheses.
Good. Okay. So when we click on our button, we're making our axios call, and it's supposed to go to the backend and then print out our request.body. Let's look at. Okay, and then here I'm gonna type something that's not correct way of putting it. Okay. So it's getting success equals true, which is the JSON response. And then if we look in our other terminal, we see that we have a dictionary of title and something. Okay, so one way of accessing the title is through json.loads. We also have access to it through request.data. So request.data is going to hold, it is going to be a dictionary of the values that were sent in. So we can actually access the title through this as well. Let me see here if it's, I call this JSON data. I just want to see if we can access both this in a similar way. So I'm gonna print this out. That was not what I wanted to do. Print that and then print the JSON data. Okay. Everything's updated. Okay. I can trigger this again. And I can click, or just do something. I misspelled it again. Okay. So JSON data, I wanted to do title, just to see if we can access it the same. We should be able to. Yeah, I don't even need to refresh this page because I just changed something on my Django side. Yeah, so basically these two are equivalent. If you want to do request.data with the accessing the attribute, or if you want to do json.loads request body. And if we wanted to, just to confirm that we have everything correctly, we can send back the title that was added, or something like that, whatever we want. Title is this. Okay. Awesome. So we got it with this. Okay. Request. Any questions?
Could I just see your app.jsx?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions? So the one thing that we didn't have to add this time, which I wonder if it's because of the API views, like if it takes care of it. Let me try doing this and then adding category. We should have gotten the csrf error. Forbidden. Okay. So I think the API view is handling knowing that we're within the same context of the application. So it's not throwing that csrf error. So we didn't really need to set it, which we didn't yet. But if we do need to make an API, like a post request, with csrf, we need to set it up. And can someone remind me what the csrf token does?
I'm pretty sure it just makes it where you're not as vulnerable pretty much, so people don't get your info or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically it's a cookie that is sent in the header of the requests. So I have here, I actually can put this before. No, I'll keep it at the top of the app. Maybe before it. I don't know. We'll figure it out later. So we basically want to get the csrf token cookie that is coming in. So in our page, in our HTML document, we have access to the cookies of this page. So what this code is doing is, here's just creating a variable. It's checking if document.cookie exists and it is not an empty string, then it is grabbing the cookie. So cookies are split with semicolons. If we look at better network tab. Okay. Oh, I need to reload. Okay. Ah, love this. Okay, here. This. So in our document, this is our base page. We have headers, we also have cookies. Let me see in the request. So the request header has a cookie object, and if there's more than one, they're usually separated by a semicolon. So this one just grabs the list of cookies. And here we're just trimming it, just fixing it up to be able to grab the single string. And then we pretty much want this first name. So we're looking for whatever name that matches. So the name that we're taking in is going to be csrf token. That's what we're looking for. And we're checking that like the name by length, and then we're basically checking the UI string. Cookie.value is going to be this one. It's the unencoded version of an unencoded version of an encoded component in a URI. Okay, so it grabs basically this thing. And it decodes it, and then we're grabbing it and we're putting it in the axios headers. So whenever we make a request, we are making a request from a source. So our source is going to be axios, from a source that Django knows is safe, pretty much because of the csrf token. So Django sets this cookie when it's hosting the website and saying that this is pretty much like, this is your secure code for this session. So when we are grabbing it and we're putting it in the axios header, that means we're able to do axios post requests without having to, not without having to, we're making the axios post request with this header. And this header tells Django that it is trusted, pretty much. So the key here, this cookie, there's I don't know if it's probably not the same one. There's like some sort of translation that is done. So it's pretty much checking that you are allowed to be sending these requests, and it's not like some malicious request that is coming in. So now that I set the cookie, if I remove this, because we saw it was working earlier, it wasn't working because of the token. So now, actually, I don't need to refresh this because I did change my front end, never mind. So I need to go to the base page and go here. I send something, add category. I get, okay. It says that there's no attribute data, which is fine because, so the request.data part is something that the API view allows us to get. So instead of having to do the JSON data part, the JSON.loads, we can do request.data because of this API view. So since I commented it out, we didn't have access to it anymore. So if I do this one more time, it gives me another error. Oh, because I'm trying to access the same thing here. So I'm just gonna write T. Okay, if I send it again, please work. Okay, it's working now. So it's just sending here. It's actually making the request. It's not getting any errors. Did that make sense with the csrf token stuff? You basically set the header on whatever is sending the request to let the receiver, which is our server, know that this is a safe request coming in because of that header. Yeah.
Since we're giving the browser our React API, this is like a backdoor to say, I came from you, I'm a part of you, I'm safe.
I believe so. I believe that's what it's doing on the back end. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like it. Okay. Any questions? Any last things you guys want to see or ask or demo? I think I hit all three topics that I was going to add. Oh, the debugger. That's the last thing that I didn't mention. Okay. So to use the debugger in VS Code, you can just put a red dot here wherever you want. So let's say I'm going to stop this server. I don't know what I did. I think I copied, I pasted code in there. Okay, so you go to run and debug. You are going to run and debug. It's a Django workspace folder. I think my workspace folder is going to be slash, was it forum slash, I think, manage.py. Enter a valid Python path. That's not correct. Let's just say it is, and we'll see what happens. No, that did not work. So I'm going to need to be. Okay, it works better when you're, when you're in this. So I'm going to do this real quick. So I'm going to open only my Django code in here. I'm going to put the virtual environment in there as well. Okay, so now our venv is in here. I'm going to open the terminal. And then I'm going to activate my environment. So source slash venv. Or not, sorry, not dot slash dot then wait. Okay. I really hope this works because it worked the other day and I was excited to show you guys. Okay, Django. feel like it stopped using, oh, I need to do Python and then, never mind. It's not gonna, it worked the other day and now it's not, because it hates me. That's okay. Unless I activate my environment here, source, and activate, and then I run the debugger. Never mind. Yeah, there was it was working the other day where it sees the .venv, it takes it as the Python interpreter. Ah, I see it. It wasn't this one, it was this one. So wherever your Python version is, you can click on .venv. Let's hope this works. Okay, I still have a dot there. Let's run it, please. Yay! Okay. So I'm gonna run it. So now the server is running. It's still running the debugger. It's not stopping at this point. It stopped earlier because it was like defining everything. But now, sorry, I'll make this bigger so it won't overlap. Okay, so now if I make this request, should have stopped here. Maybe I need to set a breakpoint here. Okay, there we go. So it didn't stop at the function definition, but it stopped inside of the function because those are the lines of code that we're actually running. So here you can hover over things, and once they have been already defined, so once the line has passed them, you will have an access to that variable. So here we're on line 14. If you hover over request, you can see everything that's inside of request. You can see like it has post because it was coming from a post method. You can see data. Yeah, so there's just, here's the data that we're actually accessing. So yeah, so you can step with this, you can step line by line. It's going to ask if the method is request, or sorry, if the method is get, but it's not, it's post. So you can go to the next line, and then it'll go into the next line, and you can see it line by line pretty much. But when it got to there, it just stopped because you weren't able to access the body request for some reason. I don't know. But anyways, that's the debugger. If anyone's ever wanting to play around with the debugger. But yeah, anything else?
This might have been like super simple, but can I see your models again? Just, did you do a model?
Oh, I didn't. I did. I migrated, but I didn't change anything. I didn't add anything yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious if that was done or what you did instead, or.
No, are you running into some issues or?
I mean, I haven't even got off the ground. I'm still like, you guys flew off, so I'm just here, but just curious. I thought I missed it, but that makes sense.
Yeah. Kayla, I don't think we're gonna get to the database, which I also with the assessment, most of it is written. It's just that part that is that you guys need to implement. So I don't want to show too much. Yeah, we'll review the assessment requirements before we stop recording. Let's do that. First, any last questions or thoughts?
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
So I think that my program stopped showing everything because in my static folder, or in the assets part in the server, one of the index files randomly opened while I was typing, and I tried to do a control V, and I don't think that helped.
Is it it's the compiled one you said, right?
Yeah, one of the compiled ones.
Yeah, you
And,
can just, oh, sorry.
oh yeah, like can I just delete it and should it work again?
Yeah, if you delete it and then rerun your build script, it'll auto-populate.
Okay, and should I delete the index.html too, or just the assets folder?
Whichever, I mean, you can delete both. If you know that only one of them has been updated, you can just delete that one.
Okay.
I don't even think you need to delete it. If you run the build watch again, it'll recompile and it'll place everything in that place, in its place.
I've done that like 5 times and it's not working.
Oh, yeah, then you should delete it probably.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, if anyone has like any last debugging things, we'll do it after I run through this one last time, and then we can dismiss people. It's been a long day. Okay, so the challenge is you are basically creating like the API for a forum. So you want categories and you want posts, pretty much. So I'm going to go through the actual task. So you are going to be creating some models and then implementing the API views in views.py. And this is like after you've run your program and you've added some dummy data, just use the dump data command. Oops, I did not want to do that. Just use the dump data command to dump the data that's in the database into a fixture file so you can have it for later. Or like if we're grading it by hand and stuff, we want to be able to see data that's filled in. Okay, so for the first part, the models, you're creating 2 models, a category model and a post model. For the category model, you have the ID, which is auto-generated when you're creating Django models, and then you need a title. You can add any other things that you want. So if you want more attributes, feel free. No constraints. Well, there is a constraint. So the constraints on the category is that a category can have many posts. That is the only thing, like, yeah. And then for the post model, I keep double clicking. Okay, so category for the post model, you're gonna have an ID, a title, and a content attribute. This, so basically the relationship between these you have to determine. So category and post, a category can have many posts. So that could be a one-to-many relationship, but it's up to you if you'd like to have in your app the model of many posts to many categories. You can do that as well. So you can choose either to do a one-to-many relationship between the two or a many-to-many relationship. Yeah, Ben.
So since we have a delete category, should that also delete posts related to that category?
I think so. That will depend on how you would like to implement it. So based on what your site is like do you want the posts to stay or the categories to stay when something is deleted? So we're not gonna be nitpicky about that. That's up to your implementation.
Cool.
Awesome. So yeah, that's the models. Pretty simple. Set up database, just create an assessment for, oh my god, assessment for database, because that's what I named it in the base code. If you use a different one, just change the name, it's fine. Actually, when we're grading, we might need it well, we are doing videos. We'll talk about that. But yeah, just try to keep it as assessment for. This is just the setup to use the code. So just the .benv, the pip install, and then running the server and stuff like that. So that's self-explanatory. Okay, so for the views, you have to give the API view decorator the correct parameters. So what methods are we do we want to allow in our function to process? So in here, we added get and post because that's what we wanted the categories function to process. For the rest of them, you're going to need to add what they are taking, and that will be based off of the README. It's based off of the routes that we defined over here. Okay, views. So the view function must return the appropriate JSON response. Also, yeah, just based on what the function is supposed to do, just return the data that needs to be sent. If your data is not being formatted correctly, look into serializers or JSON view. This was a new decorator that I had found that allows you to just send Python dictionaries instead of JSON formatted ones. So yeah, you can play around with that if you'd like. But basically just implement the view function. Oh, I think this part was supposed to, yeah, ignore that part. So yeah, it's a pretty short assessment and a lot of the code is written. So I'm hoping that people will get to the optional part. So if you'd like to expand, you can add maybe not just posts, but you can have polls on your website. We've learned how to do polls before. We haven't done them in React, but we've done them in Django. So we've built the models for the polls. So you can create a data model or two. You can have poll and choice, where each poll can have many choices. You can create an API route to get the polls or edit the polls or do whatever you want. And then you can write your view function and then extend the UI and add components and functionality that would interact with the polls. Yeah, this is not part of the grading, but I would recommend if you guys get to it and are interested to play around with this. Some other things to expand on, maybe voting on a poll in the UI, styling the app, so using components from Bootstrap, other libraries. Yeah, this is honestly mainly for you guys to practice and to feel comfortable making a full stack application. We're not testing you on the full stack app part. That's why I created it for you. But yes, I'm hoping that you guys will enjoy it and have fun with it. Questions?
Zainab, you said the base code, so there's supposed to be like a project folder in our assessment already?
Yes, so we've been doing GitHub Classroom. Let me give you the link to that. Am I sharing my screen?
Yeah, because some of us, I accepted that. I know some people have too, and we don't see a project folder in our assessment, the base code.
Interesting. Let me see real quick.
Yeah, when I cloned it, it just gave me the README really, and I've just been coding along, building everything with you.
So it's only reading, there's no code at all?
That's what I got when I...
Yeah, there's no code at all. There's only a README in the .github, the classroom feedback.
That's what I got too.
I'm pretty sure that's what everyone has.
Interesting. Okay, I might have to.
That's kind of what I was confused about in the beginning. If
Yeah.
we were supposed to use what you've been doing as our build.
Damn it. Okay. No, there is code. I will fix that momentarily. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Zainab, let me know if you want a hand with that.
Thank you.
Definitely.
If code goes into that GitHub repository though, are we going to have version control errors if we try and push up to it or anything like that?
I don't think you should.
Okay.
Let me see what happened here. But yeah, while I'm doing this, if there's any other questions or if you guys want to debug your code together, I can stop the recording.
I have a quick question. So the assessment, how do I get access to that again, one more time?
Yeah, I'm gonna refresh the link. I'm gonna stop sharing here. I'm gonna stop recording.